Find all our courses at MeanThat.com. In the previous video, we have talked about the organizational environment, and so that every organization operates in some sort of an environment. So that we introduced ourselves some organization, and around this organization is something what we call a specific environment which can be our distributors, our customers, and let's say our suppliers as well. And then there is something wider that we call a general environment. So we have some general environment, and those are these big forces such as political forces, economical forces, and let's say even demographic forces. And now we have taught ourselves that there are these forces that they are affecting the way we are obtaining the scarce resources and the way we operate. Now, when talking about the organizational environment, now we are getting to the concept of sources of uncertainty in the environment around us. And as you can see, we are going to have three sources of uncertainty. First is environmental complexity. Oh, sorry, I wrote third. So we have environmental complexity. Then we have environmental dynamism. And third, we have environmental richness. So let's give it a head start. First, we have environmental complexity. This is simply the strength, the number, and interconnectedness of the specific and general forces that are around us. So we are caring about the strength, number, and interconnectedness of the forces that are around us. So we can imagine that we would like to be in a situation where, let's say, this is our organization. So very quickly, this is our organization, and we have some suppliers. So we have a supplier one. So this is going to be our first supplier. Then we are going to have our second supplier. And it's quite simple to manage two suppliers, right? So that we call such an environment a simple one. But imagine if the number and the strength of these forces increases. For a simplification, just imagine that the number of supplier increases. So we have another supplier, then we have another one, and one more. And all of a sudden, we have to manage relationships with 5 suppliers instead of 1. And that is what we call a complex environment. So a complex environment. So you can imagine we would like to operate in a simple one, but sometimes it happens we are operating in a complex environment. Now, secondly, we have environmental dynamism. Is the degree to which forces in the specific and general environments change quickly over time, and thus contribute to the uncertainty an organization faces. So you can imagine that we can have an organization. So let's say this is again our organization, and we would like to operate in a stable environment. So let's write it down. We would like to operate in a stable environment. And what can be a stable environment? Well, where forces are changing over a very long time, so are changing very slowly. So let's say that laws change only once in 50 years. However, we can be operating in an unstable environment. So we can have an unstable environment. And here, let's say our organization would be operating in an environment where the laws are changing every second year, every 2 years, and we have to adjust to these quite big changes. So there you can see the difference. If the forces are changing very slowly and gradually, then we are in a stable environment. But if they are changing very quickly, then we are operating in an unstable environment. Now, probably the most important point, environmental richness. This is the amount of resources available to support an organization's domain. So an amount of resources. So let's imagine that our resource is going to be, let's say, a skilled personnel. So our scarce resource is a skilled, let's say a skilled programmer or skilled engineer. Now, we would like to be operating in an environment where there are a lot of skilled engineers that we can choose from. So we will decide that we will operate close to the MIT University. So we will go close to MIT University. Let me just highlight it. And this university is now every year going to produce a lot of skilled engineers. So there is going to be one skilled engineer, then one more, and one more, and let's say the last one. So 5 skilled engineers are going to come out of MIT University every year. And that is good for us because we can hire 5 of these every year. And that's what we call a rich environment. So a rich environment. But of course you can imagine that we can be operating in a poor environment, and that would be simply because, let's say, we are not having access to such university that is producing these skilled engineers, or because we are not the only organization. So in this case, we were the only organization that was trying to get these skilled engineers. So we were trying to get them, and we had access to 5 of them. But now another organization will come and they will try to get these as well. They would like to hire some skilled engineers, and let's say they are going to take 4 of them. So these 4 guys are going to go to another company. And due to that, we are again in a poor environment because we do not have access to large amount of scarce resources. So even though there are a lot of resources, there is also a lot of competition for these resources. And again, we are in a poor environment. Now, let's give us an example of organizations or an industry which is a rather simple, stable, and rich. Well, it's said to be a pharmaceutical industry. So pharmaceutical industry. And the other extreme of let me just make an arrow. The other extreme of an industry that is complex, unstable, and poor is said to be airline industry. Airline industry. Probably you have heard about the low-cost airlines that have changed the industry rapidly. So we have 3 sources of uncertainty in the organizational environment, and it's quite necessary to remember the extremes here.